If you speak dollars to an owner, if you speak dollars to a division or a company, they're always going to listen. But if you're working for a cheap-ass company, yeah, they're probably cheap and they're probably going to take advantage.
When an employee only does what's required, it's called quiet quitting. No, it's called doing your job. If I'm supposed to go above and beyond, then so should my pay. Don't expect something for nothing, right? Or does that only apply to poor people? Yeah, my employees show up every day, but they don't dress up like Santa Claus and bring me toys, so they're lazy. You're lucky that an employee does their job. I've done so little at work before that it wasn't even quietly quitting. It was technically robbing.
I don't know if he really believes any of that. I'm a firm believer that in order to get, you must give. I'm a give first, get second type of guy. But this hump right here, he believes in getting first and then giving. It's how you view the world. I'm of the idea that I'll show you what I can do, and I'm going to make it so either you pay me or I'm going to take my talent elsewhere. I'm okay with the employee going, watch what I do, and make it so I go, man, I can't live without that person. I'm of that mindset, and that's how I started. You know, for me, it was 110 hours a week, and I was getting paid $360. Was I wrong to work 110 hours, maybe more, but to be fair, 110 hours for $360 a week?
No, it ended up paying off for you.
Yeah,
but what if it
do you know how many people told me, Brandon, what are you doing? They're taking advantage of you. Yeah, heck yeah, they were taking advantage of me. But I already had a plan. I was like, well, I'm going to master this, and I was thriving on the success that I was achieving. I remember going and asking my first raise, and they bumped me up $40 to work 110 hours, so I was making $400. I would never ask an employee to work 110. But if they wanted to work 110, I know now from my own experience, they're building something.
Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
I better not mess with that employee and make sure that they're compensated and they become a part of the operation permanently.
Well, I could see too if you're working for an employer who has the resources or the ability to make your skills better in what you're striving to become. So, like, for example, when I worked as an intern at a news station, you know, I wanted to get better on camera. I wanted to get better with script writing. I wanted to get better at all these things. So I was willing to not get paid or, you know, take a pay cut or an entry-level position in order to get the skills I needed to move on to the next big thing. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, too, have this perception, like, I need to come in right away and make millions of dollars because I'm owed something and I deserve it. And it's just this level of entitlement that exists nowadays where people just don't feel they need to put the work in. There are employers that I've seen in the past and have experience with where I'll see an employee taking on a job of not just their own, but two employees who just left.
Right.
So now that employee has to take on the burden of their workload, and there's no raise, there's no bonus, even a year later.
Okay. And that's a bad thing?
I mean, for me, at that point, I would have left.
Okay. Let me ask you this. How much was U of A paying you to go to school every week? What was your paycheck from U of A?
None.
But you were working every week. Weren't you going to school?
Yeah, but I was paying for it to learn.
Yeah, but you were paying, so you were actually paying them to learn.
Yeah,
but
the trade-off is they were giving me a service that I was paying for.
Okay, so yeah, so you're paying for an education.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say you are at somewhere and you've got a project and you're being paid because you're a project manager and you typically have one or two projects.
Yeah.
And then a couple people quit and they go, hey, you got to take on John and Jeff's projects as well, right? So you're managing those. No pay increase. What do you think you're going to learn from that? Is there any education to be had from now handling, say they had two, now you're handling 6 projects?
Time management skills.
Okay, time management, right? You're putting in extra time, but you are slowly developing skills and a system to handling multiple projects. What should come out of that scenario is, one, you should be better at what you're doing, right? You should learn to become more proficient, better communicator, better planner, right? I'm telling you right now, there is nothing wrong with being stacked with work if you can take advantage of it and learn to become better at that.
Yeah.
Because let me ask you this. Let's just say it's a 6-month stint, right? They quit. They don't hire anybody for 6 months. And in 6 months, you got 6 projects and you're working crazy hours, right? You're putting in 70 hours a week, being paid for your standard 40. But at the end of that 6 months, you have now implemented policies, procedures that have now allowed you to go from 70 hours maybe down to 55. You've taken out of the workload 15 hours. One person doing the job of 3 people at 70 hours or 75 hours, you've now figured out how to manage it, get it down to 55 hours, right? So let me give you an example of what happens when you're challenged in that way. We had a payroll department, and I've talked about this before. We had a payroll department that was running about 48 hours to run payroll every week. But I step in, I'm like, there's no way any department should be spending 48 hours to process payroll. The processing of payroll went down from 48 hours down to 4 hours. Even the hiring of 10 people would take about 16 hours. We got that down to about 45 minutes. So what happens is that when you are faced with challenges, you either sit there and go bitch and moan saying, well, he's working 40, I'm working 40. Now you stack me with their 80 hours worth of work. No, figure out how to make their work fit into your 40 hours. Is it possible? 100%.
If that's possible, yes.
100%.
But I look at it.
But let me finish though. Most people are going to say, I'm not going to figure out a way. That's not my job. You're not paying me enough to figure out how to make this work better. My point of view is I'm going to say, okay, watch this. I'm going to do John and Jeff's work and mine all in 40 hours, and I'm going to tell the company exactly how I did it. And when I go to them saying, listen, I've now saved you this much money in payroll, this is what I want.
Well, what if you know that company doesn't like to give generous raises?
Okay, great. So the company says, I'm not going to give you $4,200. We'll give you a couple $100 raise. You know what? I appreciate what you guys have done for me, everything I've learned here. This past 6 months has been a game changer for me. And I'm going to take what I've learned here. I'm going to find another company that's struggling with the same thing. But this time I'm going to negotiate at the front end saying, listen, I can save you guys 80 hours in labor every week. You hire me, I'm going to save you 80 hours right out of the gate. So, but here's my negotiated salary. Here's the benefits I want. And someone's going to take it up. I promise you, if you speak dollars to an owner, if you speak dollars to a division or a company, they're always going to listen. But if you're working for a cheap-ass company, because let's face it, they didn't hire anybody for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably cheap, and they're probably going to take advantage. But I use it. You can't lose. You can't lose. You can do the work, master it, become good at it, and then take that knowledge, take the processes, and then take that to the bank, either with a current employer or a new employer.
But I would look at this like, okay, I'm in my 30s. I've already had over a decade of work experience. I've already had to juggle multiple projects. I've already had to do time management and prioritizing. Like that particular potential trait or something I can learn, I had already had that skill at that point, in my 30s. So I would assume that same person who's near my age would have already accumulated the hours and the experience to where, like, okay, I can already master this down to 40 hours, or I could try to negotiate a higher salary at this point if I'm taking on more work. But it could just be that she doesn't have the belief in herself. She doesn't have, the balls to go in there and be like, hey, like, I'm working extra hours, I'm doing other people's jobs for them, and I'm not getting paid extra.
Yeah. If one of my employees came to me and said, hey, I'm working extra hours, I'm doing the job of more people, my question to you is going to be this. Have you made us better, yes or no?